Hey plant pals, it's Daniela from California Carnivores, and today we're going to talk about how to water your dewy pine in winter. So if you follow us, you know that Drosophyllum are one of my absolute favorite carnivorous plants, and I just love these plants so much. So I want everybody to be able to grow them successfully, but they are a little tricky. The reputation that they have for being hard to grow is not entirely unwarranted. A huge part of that is that they are a different kind of plant when it comes to watering compared to the other carnivorous plants. They only want to be sitting in water in the summer, and only really for the hottest parts of the summer or for the first 6 months they're growing when they're a seedling. In the winter, it gets a little more complicated, so I'm going to walk you through that. And really, there's only two components to it, temperature and water, so we'll go through it, okay? So dewy pines are Mediterranean plants, and when we think of Mediterranean climate, a lot of people don't think about the winters. They think that the Mediterranean climate is really warm all the time, but it isn't. It's actually very similar to the climate we have at the nursery here. So we're in zone 9, the USDA zone 9B specifically, and so our wintertime temperatures are generally 60s during the day, and they can drop down as low as the 30s during the night, and that's Fahrenheit. So the last couple weeks it's been in the 30s. Which to me is freezing. I know cold is a relative term, and a lot of people back east are going to say that that's nothing, but it's been 30s, and the dewy pines are fine. We even get a brief freeze for 1 or 2 nights. They're okay with that too. But if I was to have a sustained week of freeze, that would be a lot for the dewy pines, and if it was to snow here, they couldn't tolerate that. So if you're in your area, if it is going to be in the 20s consistently for a week or more, if it's going to be snowing, these are areas where you cannot leave these plants outdoors during the winter. So you're going to need to bring them in for the winter. You can also just bring them in for the freezes if you generally have pretty good temperatures other than that. If you have a very similar climate to us or a Mediterranean climate, leave them outside for winter. They're fine with it. You can see these are a couple of my, these are actually all just seedlings from this year. And they're all super happy. They've been through the last 2 weeks of 30 degrees at night, and they're totally content. And do remember, when you're talking about temperatures in plants and what they can tolerate, you're really talking about nighttime temperatures, especially in winter. So think about, because that's going to be the lowest of the low, so think about that when you're planting. Don't plan it based on your daytime temperatures. All right, so let's talk about the water now, which is the other really big component. So rain. People really kind of worry about the rain. The rain is wonderful for carnivorous plants, and especially wonderful for dewy pines. So as you know, carnivorous plants don't want any minerals or salts in their water and their soil. But over time, that sort of stuff just builds up naturally. And what the rainwater does for you that's so wonderful is it goes through the pot and it totally helps take all of that stuff out of the pot. It'll still have some buildup, but it's going to help cleanse the soil a little bit. And with the dewy pine, it's particularly great because these plants do not like to be transplanted once they're large. So you're really going to need them to stay in the same soil, the same pot, long term. So every winter, if the rain can cleanse that pot for you, that's actually going to be to your benefit. So one of the big tricks in the winter is you don't want it sitting in water, but you do want the rain to do its magic. So in summer, you often have them sitting in a saucer. As soon as the winter hits, as soon as the first rain comes, take that saucer away. This is the time of year I see more people lose their dewy pines than any other time of year. And that's because they leave that saucer there and the rainwater builds up in the saucer. And think about this, dewy pines like to dry out, right? The soil will be very wet from the rain. The photo periods are shorter, the sun's not coming out as much, it's not as warm, so the soil is having a harder time losing that moisture and drying out. And then if it's sitting in a saucer of water, it's pulling that water up into the soil even as it's losing it. So as it's trying to dry out, that water is going right back into the soil, never getting it a chance to fully dry out. And that's gonna really harm your plant. That's when it's gonna rot. So definitely take the saucer away. But that does mean that you're gonna have to put like a little bit more of your eyes on these plants. Keep an eye on them because you're gonna have to probably hand water in winter in the periods between the rain if they go too long. Especially where we are. Okay, so we're in Northern California where we get really big rain and then we get nothing for a really long time. I have to hand water in winter. So I like to keep my dewy pines actually by one of the doors that I use more frequently in my house. That way I'm always seeing it, you know, every day, every couple of days, I got my eyes on it and I can tell probably time to water this guy. And then I just overwater from above. I hand water it once every week if it's gonna be, you know, surprisingly warm, or once every few weeks when it's gonna be cooler, because we really wanna make sure that the soil dries out between these rainstorms. That's really, really important. Don't worry if you have a few back-to-back rainstorms, as long as it's not sitting in water, the plant can take that. And don't worry, the other thing people really worry about in winter is, will the rain actually hurt my plant? And I totally understand that, because they seem very wispy and delicate, and also you work really hard to keep this plant alive and you love it and it's special. You don't have to worry. I mean, if you can see, I have a right here. This is a little seedling. Let's take a look. So this little guy, only like 3 leaves on there, right? We recently had a record-breaking storm here where we had 8 inches of rain in an incredibly short period of time. And this guy made it through just fine. All of our seedlings were fine. Some of them bent to the ground, but they pop right back up, because don't forget, dewy pines have a very deep taproot. And so they can generally take a lot of rain. They can even take a bit of hail. I've never had to move mine inside for hail. However, if we were gonna get a crazy hailstorm, I would probably protect them. And I know especially in some of the other areas of the United States, there's like super intense hail. I would definitely protect them from those. And if you are concerned, that's totally understandable. I would just put a little cup or something over your plant so that the plant itself remains protected from the rain, but so the soil can still get that nice rain through it. Generally speaking, this, you can see, like, look at these pots. They still have a lot of soil in them. We have not backfilled this. The rain didn't dig all of that soil out because it's a very heavy soil. What happens is all the perlite kind of floats to the top, and sometimes that gets washed out, but it's a very heavy, sandy, rocky mix, so it just tends to settle in really well. It's unlikely the rain, a normal rain, is going to hurt your plants outside, but again, you're gonna have to use some of your best judgment and you put your planty kind of hat on and really be thoughtful about that. So you're gonna have to watch the weather in winter a little bit. And if you think that it could be too tough of a storm, go ahead and be cautious. Bring it inside or cover it up. That's always a good plan. I hope that helps. If I've forgotten anything or if you have other questions, please comment below. You know I love dewy pines. They're my favorite. So I want to know how you guys are doing with them. And I hope you get through the winter with them super well. Remember, just let them dry out a little bit more in winter and they will be actually really happy for it. All right, happy growing.